So if you've watched this channel, you know that one of the things I talk about a lot is kind of funny, and I tend to wear a lot of kind of funny merchandise. I mean, I'm wearing a kind of funny hat right now. So they're doing something a little special for 2018. You see, on May 4th, 2018, Avengers Infinity War comes out, which is the 19th movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which started with Iron Man on May 2nd, 2008. Now, the interesting thing about May 4th, 2018 is that it is 18 weeks into the new year, which means you can watch one Marvel movie every week for the next 18 weeks, and then you will have seen all the movies that lead up to Avengers Infinity War the week that it comes out. So what they are doing is, in fact, today, which is Friday, this video posts on Saturday, but I'm recording it on Friday, they released a video in which they all watched Iron Man, and then they got together and discussed it. And then every week for the next 18 weeks, they will watch the next movie that came out in release order. So next week will be The Incredible Hulk. Now there is one slight caveat to this, and that is that on February 16th, Black Panther, which is the 18th Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, will come out. So they will be watching that one out of release order for the rest of them. So yeah, they'll be watching that 7th in the order when it should be 18th, but that's just because that's when it comes out. And so that means it's time for me to bust this out. This is the Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 1 box set. It has the first 6 movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it has Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, the First Avenger, and Avengers. And so I will also be watching one Marvel Cinematic Universe movie a week for the next 18 weeks. I also have the Phase 2 box set, which I will show you in, 7 weeks when I get to Iron Man 3. There are 6 movies in that phase as well, which is, let's see here, Iron Man 3, Thor the Dark World, Captain America the Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers Age of Ultron, and Ant-Man. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to watch the Phase 3 movies because the Phase 3 box set hasn't come out yet, of course, because Phase 3 isn't done yet. There's actually 3 more movies after Avengers Infinity War, and the last one comes out on May 3rd, 2019, so the Phase 3 box set will come out probably holiday 2019. So we'll have to figure out something for that. I think some of them might be on Netflix or Redbox. You could probably get some of them, but I'll have to figure it out as it gets later. I'll probably just end up buying them on iTunes anyway. So if you have access to the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, I recommend watching Iron Man this week and then watching the kind of funny breakdown of it. And actually, I'll link to it. Here's a card for it right there. And then next week, watching Incredible Hulk and watching their video that they released for that. They're going to release the videos every Wednesday. So it's just this week because of the new year. They ended up having to do it Friday. But going forward, they'll be releasing it every Wednesday. So it'll be interesting to see as it progresses throughout the beginning of the year until Avengers Infinity War. So that's enough plugging another channel for free for the 7 people that are going to watch this video. So let's go ahead and get into the video proper. Roll the thing. Hey guys, Sean here. So I recently started doing product reviews outside of my weekly vlogs because they are more time sensitive. When things come out, you want to get the review out there as quickly as possible because it has a better chance of being viewed that way than if you hide it within a weekly vlog. And so with that in mind, the product I would like to review for you is this, the iPhone X. Now, the reason that I'm doing this within the weekly numbered vlog and not in its own separate video is because the iPhone X has been out for what, like 6 weeks by this point? And all of the reviews that have been put up on YouTube are so many, and it doesn't matter anymore. It's not a timely thing anymore. I've missed the boat at this point. So I'm just gonna go ahead and review it now because I have it and I've had it for like a week or two, so let's go ahead and review it. Plus, I needed a subject for this week's video. But first, a little backstory, because that's what you're looking for when you come to review videos. Let's go all the way back to what? like 20 years ago when I got my first cell phone. I believe the company that my first cell phone plan was on was VoiceStream, or it might have been something else, and then eventually VoiceStream bought it out. But then after that, T-Mobile bought out VoiceStream. And since whenever that happened, I've had T-Mobile as my carrier. Now, one of the things about T-Mobile is they were pretty much the last major carrier to get the iPhone. So since smartphones became a thing, I pretty much had Android phones. However, I also had iPods because I liked iPods. I liked Apple's MP3 players. And honestly, I would have gotten an iPhone if I could. Because as it was, I was carrying an Android phone everywhere I went and an iPod everywhere I went. An iPod Touch to be exact. And I was always like, I wish I could just combine these two things and only have one device, but T-Mobile won't let me. And I don't know why I didn't just switch to another carrier at that point, but I just really liked T-Mobile, and I still do like T-Mobile to this day. What year did the iPhone 5S come out?
Apple.com should be able to answer that question, and more.
You're useless. Well, all of that changed in September of 2013 when T-Mobile finally got their first iPhone, the iPhone 5S. As soon as it went up for pre-order, I pre-ordered it. Now, one of the things about T-Mobile at the time is that was right when they started their whole no more contracts thing, which meant that if you bought a phone from them, you couldn't put like a payment plan on it. You had to buy it all outright when it first came out, which means this phone cost a lot of money. And so for that reason, I used it up until I absolutely couldn't anymore. It stopped taking charges. It started getting really slow. Of course, Apple has recently admitted that they start to slow down older phones because of battery life and things like that, and it really made people angry. But really, it's like the technology has advanced so much since this that it was time to get a new phone anyway, so I really didn't have that big of a problem with it. So I went to the T-Mobile and I was like, I'd like to order the new iPhone 10, and the guy was like, okay, so let's go ahead and fill out all the paperwork and everything. And I was like, sweet. Although the paperwork isn't actually paperwork anymore, it's all just I tell him and he types it all into the computer. So it was all, here's how much it'll cost, here's how much you gotta put down today, here's how much you'll be paying every month, blah, 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 blah. Okay, great. So where should we send it? Well, I don't want you to send it to the address that you have on file. And they're like, okay, is it this address? And I'm like, that's an address that is like 2 addresses ago. Why do you still have that? No, I don't want you to send it to that address, and I don't want you to send it to my current address. And he was like, the one in Long Beach? And I'm like, yes, do not send it to that address. So then he was like, well, then where should we send it? Well, send it to my P.O. box. And he's like, we can't send it to P.O. boxes. I'm like, great. So I take out my phone and I start going through my contacts, and I'm like, send it to this address. And I had them send it to my friend's house, which is in Van Nuys, which, if you know Southern California, Long Beach, Van Nuys, very far apart from each other. However, my friend lives in a house, I live in a crappy apartment building. It'd be much safer there than here. The main reason for all of this was the beginning of Christmas break, so I wasn't going to be going to work for the next week. Had I been going to work for the next week, I would have just had them send it to my office, like I have pretty much every package that is delivered to me sent to my office. Anyway, he's like, okay, fine, we'll send it there. And I'm like, great. We finish up the transaction. He's like, okay, you're good to go. And I'm like, thank you, that's great. So I get home, I check my email. I see an email from T-Mobile that says, we're gonna be delivering your phone tomorrow. And I'm like, that's fantastic. I'm going to my friend's house that I'm having it shipped to anyway, so I will be there when it arrives. I then look at the address that they're sending it to. They're sending it to my apartment. So the next day I have to text my friend and be like, I'm gonna have to wait around here for the UPS guy to show up because I'm so afraid that he's just gonna leave my phone out in front of the apartment building and then take off. Because I've actually had that happen before. I had that happen with a box of checks. They were delivered to my apartment building, they were left in front of my apartment building, and then they were stolen from the front of my apartment building. I had to get a new checking account because of that. So while I was waiting around for the UPS guy, I signed up for UPS.com and I'm like, okay, what can I possibly do here? So I saw that you could have packages rerouted to the distribution center and they have something known as a UPS locker. It is very much like an Amazon locker if you've ever gone to a 7-Eleven. Amazon lockers are great for situations just like this. They're basically within 7-Elevens, or I think they're in other places as well, but I've only gone to 7-Elevens that have them. And it's just a big row of lockers, and there's a touch screen in the middle of it, and you're just like, okay, here's my order number, and then one of the lockers pops open, and your package is in there. It's great. It's fantastic. Well, at the UPS distribution center, they have the same thing. So when all of this was happening, where I was like, please send it to the locker instead of delivering it, and they were like, okay, we will do that, it was December 23rd, which was a Saturday. Sunday, they of course don't work. Monday was Christmas, so of course they weren't working that day either. The status of my package was still in transit. So I'm like, great, what that probably means is that it is in the truck, in the warehouse. They just need to get someone to go to the truck, grab it from the truck, put it in the locker out front, and then I could just go and get it. Is there not a single person at UPS that doesn't celebrate Christmas that could do that for me? Give me that solid, that'd be great. I understand though, because they may not celebrate Christmas, but they sure as hell celebrate a day off. So finally, Christmas Adam comes around, but Christmas Adam is the day after Christmas, since Christmas Eve is the day before Christmas. And I tweeted out, man, I really wish I knew what was going on with my UPS package, because it's just, it still says it's a transit, blah, 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 blah. I then get a reply from the UPS support on Twitter, and they're like, hey, slide into our DMs and let's talk about it. And I'm like, okay. So I slide into their DMs and I'm like, here's my tracking number, and they're like, okay, let me look into it. And then a few minutes later, they're like, so it's being held at the facility because an item that is that expensive, they cannot put it out in the locker. And I'm like, that would have been great to know. Maybe an email or something would have let me know that, so I wouldn't think that it was still in transit sitting in the truck. So then I go to the UPS, I get the package, and then I have to head straight to T-Mobile so they can switch out the SIM card from this phone into the new phone. And then the updates begin. Gotta update the phone, gotta do all the stuff. An hour later, I'm finally out of there. That is, of course, after looking at a few of the cases that they have there that are way too expensive. So after all of that, let's go ahead and talk about the iPhone X itself. Why did I take so long to get to the actual review of the phone itself? Well, there's what, 100,000 iPhone X reviews on YouTube at this point? If you are at all interested in the iPhone X, you've probably watched those videos, so anything I say isn't going to change your opinion of it either way. The only thing that makes my review of the iPhone X different than all of those is my experience. So let's go ahead and look at the iPhone X. Now, for me personally, the biggest difference between this and my old one is the size. Look at the size difference between these two. So here you see the 5S in the front, and then the 10 in the back. As everyone knows that knows anything about the iPhone X, one of the major things that they changed is that they got rid of the home button. It is all touchscreen now, and you unlock it by looking at it, because there is a very sophisticated camera sensor system up here, and you just look at it and it recognizes your face and then it's unlocked. It is easily the fastest smartphone that I've had, which isn't at all surprising because it's been 4 years. Now, I haven't had any problems at all with the face recognition of it. I don't know if other people have. I've heard a few people being like, oh, but I haven't had a problem with it at all. And even if it doesn't recognize your face, you could still unlock it with the code. And they made the code slightly more secure this time because it is now a 6-digit code instead of a 4-digit code. So really, if every now and then you have to type in a 6-digit code, it's not that big of a deal. Now, I got the super duper iPhone X, the one that has 256 gigabytes in it. Why would I do that? Well, I had a lot of stuff on this phone and it was pretty much full. And this one was, I think, 64 gigabytes, so I'm like, let's go ahead and get 202 gigabytes more. And let me tell you, so far, that was a great move. So basically, I have every CD I have ever purchased on this phone, every song I've ever purchased on iTunes on this phone, and 3 movies. Why 3 movies? Well, they're very specific movies. First off, what I have said for many, many, many years is my most favorite movie of all time, Spaceballs. And I like the idea of having Spaceballs in my pocket at all times. However, recently there is a movie that came out that may have taken its place, and I'm still undecided if it is my new favorite movie of all time. and that is Mad Max Fury Road. So I also have that on here. And then lastly, I have The Natural on here. Now the reason I have The Natural on here is that was my brother's most favorite movie of all time, and he's the one that kind of encouraged me to decide what's your favorite movie of all time. Now, at the time that he asked me that, I was in my early 20s, so that's why I'm like, Spaceballs! And so I keep The Natural on my phone as a tribute to him. I used to have it on this phone, but I ran out of space on this phone, so I had to get rid of it. Getting rid of a tribute isn't really a tribute. But with all of that on here, I still have like 190 gigabytes of space left. Now, another great thing about the iPhone X doesn't really have anything to do with the iPhone X, but with iCloud. Obviously, since this was my first iPhone, I hadn't really dealt with iCloud at all. And really, since it's been 4 years since I got this phone, iCloud has drastically improved in that amount of time. So I went into T-Mobile and they were like, when did you last sign into iCloud on this phone? I was like, oh, I think it was last night. And they're like, okay, that's great, that's fantastic. So go ahead and sign into iCloud on this phone. And I did. And like 5 minutes later, this phone was just exactly the same as this phone. It had it hadn't downloaded all the same apps, but it had all the same apps ready to be downloaded once I got back home to a Wi-Fi signal, and it had all of the same settings, it had all of my contacts, it just had everything. And it had a majority of the app data itself. And one of the major apps that I was worried about was this one, which is Downcast, which is the podcast app that I use because the Apple Podcast app is garbage. Now I have a playlist that automatically updates podcasts every day. And currently, there are 144 episodes in that playlist, which totals 207 hours. The current episode of a podcast that I am listening to is a Dear Hank and John episode from September 18th, 2017. That's how far behind I am on podcasts. Now here was my big concern. All of the shows on the Adam Carolla Podcast Network only keep a certain number of shows listed on the podcast feed. So if you go back far enough, you can't see older shows. And I think it's only like 2 months that it goes back. And so I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to download those shows that I haven't listened to yet from 3 months ago. I mean, why I'm like trying to get caught up 3 months on podcasts is because I'm crazy, but it's something that I'm doing. And so I was all worried that I was going to be, okay, well, I guess I'm going to just have to see what I can download on the new phone and then continue taking the old phone with me every time I leave, because I listen to podcasts in my car. That's all I listen to in my car. And then once I finally get caught up from this phone on this phone, then I can stop bringing this phone with me, if any of that makes sense. Well, to my glorious surprise, it downloaded every single podcast in the playlist that I had on the playlist on here, so I didn't have to do that. And before you give me any ideas, I listen to all podcasts at 1.5 speed so that they go quicker, and it still isn't helping me get caught up. I just need to listen to them outside of my car every now and then. Now, another major thing about the iPhone X is the camera, which I talked about in my previous video because I'm going to start shooting all of my vlogs outside of my apartment using this camera. However, I haven't done that yet. I haven't really done much of anything with the camera yet, so that's something that I'm still going to have to look into. So I can't tell you anything about the camera yet. I have taken a few pictures on here, and this is a little weird. This is something I gotta look into. See, I gotta angle it up like this so that you don't see the ring light in the reflection. So here's a picture of Buddy that I took, and if I scroll to the next one, you see here. And if I scroll to the next one, did you see that? He moved his head down. So I think that when you take a picture, it takes like rapid fire a bunch of pictures, and then when you scroll through them, there's a little bit of motion to them. That's weird. That's something I really need to look into as to what the deal is with that. That's probably also because there's actually 2 cameras on the back of the iPhone X, and it's because one is like super HD and the other one is just regular standard definition. So that's probably the reason for that. But yeah, that's bizarre. So I will be doing a more in-depth review of the camera on here down the line, like I said last week, because I need to like go somewhere and film just to really get a good deep dive into the camera. So next, let's talk about accessories. Now, one of the major improvements that they did to the iPhone X is it has wireless charging built into it, but you need to buy a wireless charger. So I did that. I bought this from Amazon. This was like one of the most popular wireless chargers that you can get. So basically, you just plug in the USB, I believe that what is USB 3.0 is what these types of USBs are. And then you just have this sitting on a counter or somewhere, and then you can just put your phone right on top of it and it will charge it. So that's really cool. You don't have to plug in the lightning cable into the phone anymore. Now, I have only used this one night. It was last night, and I kind of forgot about one majorly important thing when it comes to charging my phone by just laying it on top of another thing like this, and that is that I have a curious little animal that lives in my house that likes to bat things and knock them on the floor. And when I woke up this morning, I found that that is what had happened. Now, there is this little metal plate that hides in the back here, and you can slide it through like this, and then it stands up, and then you charge the phone by putting it on like that. So I'm going to try that tonight, and hopefully he won't be as batty with it if I do that as opposed to just lying it on top. So we will see what happens there. But overall, it worked well while the phone was on top of it, but it kind of needs to stay on top of it in order to charge fully. I also just ordered today an extra one from Anchor that was like $12 that I will have somewhere else in my apartment. So like if I just am in the living room as opposed to in the bedroom, I can just lie it on top of that to charge it. So that's going to be something to look forward to. But now let's get into the case, which I mentioned before when I was in the T-Mobile store. They had a bunch of cases, but they were ridiculously expensive and not exactly what I was looking for. So what exactly was I looking for? Well, exactly what I had on my iPhone 5S, which is this case right here. What makes this case so special? Well, it's kind of rubberized around the edges, and it has this nice leathery back, and more importantly, it has magnets in the back of it. Now, why does it have magnets in the back of it? Well, that's because here you see my old wallet, and in this old wallet there is a metal plate right here, and this metal plate holds the phone to it. It's brilliant. And so I combined two more things into one, my wallet and my phone. So basically I had three things in one: my phone, my iPod, and my wallet. And yeah, if you open it up, here is wallet. There's room for 3 cards on each side, and then there's pockets for more stuff, and of course your driver's license. So I was like, well, as soon as I get home, I'm going to check on Amazon to see if they make one of those for iPhone X. Well, guess what? They do. So here we have the same thing, the same rubbery around the outside, the back that is faux leather, or it might actually be leather, I don't know. Well, probably not because of how cheap this case is. And then there's 4 magnets in it. You can see there the 4 magnets, if I get the light just right. And then of course this all came together with the new wallet. Now your driver's license goes here, and this one actually holds 4 cards on each side, so that's even better. And then there's room for, you know, a few extra cards and cash in here, and the phone just goes right on here. And there's a hole in the back for the camera, and it all holds together nice and neat. Of course, it is a little bigger than this one, but that's to be understood. But it makes up for it by having the extra 2 card slots, which reminds me there is a card that I need to take out of here. So far those are the only accessories I've bought for the iPhone X, because those are the only accessories that I need for the iPhone X. So overall, I really like the iPhone X. I probably should have told T-Mobile that I was going to go to a different company so that they would do everything they could to try and keep me. But instead I was just like, hey T-Mobile, we're friends. Let's go ahead and get into a deal together. And they're like, great, we don't need to worry about you. We've already got you, so pay full price. I will be sure to remember to do that next time. in 4 years when I get another new phone. Although hopefully this one lasts a little longer than the previous one did. But seriously though, the iCloud thing, that blew me away the most, because like even like all of the Bluetooth settings and stuff, like all of the Bluetooth devices that I had synced to my old phone are now just automatically synced to this phone. That's so amazing. Oh, and another thing about this phone compared to the previous phone I had, there's another row for icons, so I can actually condense everything down like one more page. I really do need to go through the apps here and just delete things that I don't use anymore. Like all of these health apps. Ugh. I should probably use these health apps. So let me know down in the comments below if you got the iPhone 10 and what your thoughts on it, or if you got the iPhone 8 and what your thoughts are on that as compared to what you've seen of the iPhone 10. Chances are, if you have either of those phones, you haven't watched this video that far in, and you didn't even watch it to begin with. But if you made it this far, please write banana in the comments. I appreciate you. So that's going to do it for me for this video. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button, and if you'd like to see more of the crazy crap that goes on around here, including when I eventually get around to reviewing the camera on here, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And if you'd like to help support the crazy crap that goes on around here, go ahead and hit up my Patreon. And with that, have a good however long it is until you watch my next video.